Welcome back, everyone, to Ein Sof Learning. We continue our series on the Torah with Parashat Lecha. Parashat Lecha is about Avram becoming Avraham. It's the story of how Abraham became who he was. So let's go to the first verse of the Torah, following it with the commentary of Machsof HaLavan, which is a commentary on the Torah by Rabbi Yaakov Abuchatzera, otherwise known as the Baba Sali. Vayomer Adonai el Avram Lech Lecha me'artzecha u'mimoladetecha u'mibeit avicha el haaretz asher artzeka. God spoke to Avram, "Go for yourself from your land, from your birthplace, and from your father's house, to the land that I will show you." This is God speaking to Avram. But Avram is Avraham as a spiritually immature state. That's why we say that there's two states of consciousness, Katnut and Gadlut. Whenever a person is still in the beginning of their spiritual journey, this person is considered to be in a state of Katnut, what we call spiritual immaturity. The word Katnut literally means smallness. It's a state of consciousness that is not yet on the level of joy and excellence, but we're still receptive and vulnerable to things such as fear, anxiety, sadness. Sometimes we do the religious rituals, but we do them out of mindlessness. We're not conscious about it. We don't understand the Torah that we learn. We don't yet have access to the upper worlds. So this is what really every person starts out as. And that's where I am. That's where the person who's probably watching this video is at. Then we're striving to become Gadol. Gadol is the upper three Sefirot. We're trying to reach the state of spiritual maturity, which represents the breakthrough of our spiritual journey. This is a state of expanded spiritual capacity where the person embodies the attribute of love thy neighbor as thyself. They understand that life is joy and compassion, and they embody that in their character. And they're not having any fears or anxieties about external events. This person is with the Creator. Whenever a person has not yet attained their higher faculties in terms of their powers of their soul and their consciousness, their higher levels of their own consciousness, right, which is what Torah and Judaism is really all about, a person who has not yet reached those levels is called Katan. They're in a state of Katnut. Katnut means smallness or spiritual immaturity. Now, that doesn't mean that it has to do with age. Maturity and immaturity here is speaking about the soul. How you have developed that divine spark that exists within you. How much of it have you revealed within your body, within your vessel? So a person who has not yet revealed it to the higher faculties, so we call this person in a state of Katnut. But if he has revealed it, he's in a state of Gadlut, which means greatness or spiritual maturity. Avram is Avraham before he reached Gadlut. Avram is Avraham in the state of Katnut, while Avraham with the hey, with the extra letter, is Gadlut. Same thing goes for Sarah, Abraham's wife. First she was Sarai without a hey. That was whenever she was spiritually immature. She was not yet developed. We call her Katnut. Then she added a hey. When did she add a hey? Whenever she fulfilled her tikkun in the story as well. So that's whenever she became Gadlut. Each one of us is in a similar situation. We're right now in a state of Katnut. And we're striving to become Gadol. Great. We're striving to become a tzaddik, a righteous person. Which means we're striving to attain the upper three Sefirot. Chokhmah, Bina, Ve'da'at. These three Sefirot represent our higher faculties. The lower seven Sefirot represent our character and our attributes, which we need to perfect, right? We need to perfect those traits in order to then attain the higher faculties. So there's a whole process, and that's what Torah and Judaism is all about, is learning how to attain those upper three Sefirot. That's why Chabad, the acronym for Chokhmah, Bina, and Da'at, is an organization, a Jewish organization that teaches Torah and Chesed and all of the good things that Torah is all about. They have that acronym in their name because they know, Kabbalistically, that's what Torah was given for. The reason the Torah was given, that there be a nation of people that will do it first, they will attain it, and then they will bring the rest of the world to this consciousness as well. But to begin with, there needs to be a group of people that are willing to take on the responsibility of bringing it for themselves. So that way they become the example for the rest of the people, including the other Jews who refuse to wake up, but also the non-Jews who they may or may not be waking up, but nevertheless they need an example. They need someone to pave the way. So that is what the Jewish people were supposed to be. And that's who we are in our essence. Even the Jew who doesn't wrap tefillin, even the Jew who claims to be an atheist, his soul comes from the highest levels of God's essence. So this person, in their essence, they are good, they are pure, they are holy. But they may have committed multiple sins throughout their lifetimes, made mistakes. So what happens is it clouds the power of their soul, and it doesn't make them bad. It just means that they are not able to recognize that they are good. And as a consequence of that, there is a concealment of light, at least that this person was supposed to bring a certain amount of light to the world. So there is a concealment, and that lack, that gap is recognized. And you can add up all of the gaps, all of the lacks of the potentials of the Jewish people, and you actually do get the sum of all the darkness in the world. All the darkness in the world can be traced back to the unfulfilled potential of the Jewish nation, because the Jews were actually chosen for that job. They were chosen to reveal the light. Now, that doesn't mean that they're responsible for all the evil atrocities of the world. We have to be very careful with this type of rhetoric. But it does not mean that we're not responsible to bring the light to these dark spots. And we are. We are responsible to lighten up all of these dark spots. That's why we're supposed to be a light to the nations. That's exactly what it means. So, Canaan is the name of the land that God wants Abraham to really go to. He says, go to the land that I will show you. That's the land. It's the land of Canaan, which is Israel. That's Israel. The entire journey of a person is to get to Israel. Now, Israel, we know, is a place. It's a physical place. But it's more than that. It's a spiritual place. Why? It's a state of consciousness. A person can be living in the state of Israel in the sense of a consciousness state. That's why it's called a state. A state can either be a state of consciousness or a state like a physical place. But in this case, it's both. Because whenever you're in the state of Israel, you are also on a conscious state of Israel. But that's when we have the Beit HaMikdash. When we don't have the Beit HaMikdash, whenever we don't have the Messiah, whenever we don't have redemption, whenever our holy temple is destroyed, unfortunately, we are not able to experience the light of our soul, the light of really God. Because what is the soul? What is the Jewish soul? It's the presence of God in this world. So, if we don't reveal the Jewish souls, then unfortunately, God cannot be perceived. Because the way that we funnel the light of God is through the light of the soul. The Shekhinah is the divine presence, as we know. And where does the collective divine presence dwell? Where is it felt most intensely? In Jerusalem. In Jerusalem. Yerushalayim, Eretz HaKodesh. The Beit HaMikdash is the dwelling place for the light of God in this world. And it can be traced back to the collective sum of all of the Jewish souls, revealing their potentials. But unfortunately, because the Jewish people are in exile, and it's not just the Jews that are in exile, I should specify, the entire creation is in exile. God's presence is in exile. If the Jewish souls are in exile, that means God is in exile. Because we are not capable of receiving and revealing the light of God at this moment in time. What's preventing us? Hatred. Lack of peace. Lack of unity. There's in the Talmud a saying that if we don't have the vessel, which is shalom, peace, if we don't have peace, then the blessings cannot dwell within this world. Because peace is the vessel, and the blessings is the light. If you don't have peace, you don't have blessings. And this is what we're suffering today. The war in Israel is a consequence of the concealment of love thy neighbor as thyself. The war in Israel is a consequence of the hatred, the baseless hatred of the Jewish people. And of course, that has a trickle effect across the entire world. And that's what we're seeing across the globe. These are all effects, these are symptoms of the core issue, which is a lack of peace within the walls of Jerusalem, within the walls of Israel. And it's not just about the walls of the physical walls of Israel. Again, we know that each person is also a Beit HaMikdash. We are a replica of the Holy Temple. And the soul that dwells within us is the Shekhinah, the divine presence. the spark. So we need to each reveal the soul within each of ourselves, within each of our vessels. And that's how we actually build the third Beit HaMikdash. It's when the individuals that make up the world unite. And when we unite, that means that we've built the vessel, the collective vessel, that the divine presence can dwell once again. So we need to really step up our game, because we want to experience God, right? I want to experience God. So we have to do our individual part. What is the individual part? Revealing the power of your own soul, which we know has 3 levels. There's really 5 levels, but there's 3 levels that we need to connect to in order to get to the other 2. One step at a time, right? So nefesh, ruach, and neshama are those 3 levels. Your nefesh is in your blood. Your ruach is in your heart. Your neshama, that's in your brain. So we need to reveal the light of our body, our emotions, and our mind. These 3 faculties need to be revealed. They need to be mastered. What does it mean, revealed? It means that you have to gain control over these 3 areas of your life. You have to learn how to control your body, how to control your heart, and how to control your mind. These 3 areas. So in order to control your body, right, what is the body? What are the senses of the body? There's 5 senses. There's the sense of sight, the sense of hearing, smell, taste, and touch. So learning to correct your nefesh means learning to control the 5 senses of your body. And also that pertains to the mitzvot. Do certain mitzvot and don't do certain negative commandments. That's the positive mitzvot and the negative mitzvot. Tzur mira v'aseh tov. Distance yourself from evil and do good. That's how you correct your nefesh. And that corresponds to avodat Hashem, service of God, divine service. Then, to correct your ruach, you have to learn to correct your emotions. You have to control your emotions. That means your midot, your character traits. Your character traits need to be perfected. We have to learn the 13 midot of Rachamim, the Yud Gimel attributes, the 13 attributes of God, which are mercy, compassion, slow to anger, truth, kindness, forgiver of sins, right? There's 13 attributes that we need to learn to emulate in order to correct our ruach. When we correct our ruach, then we can go to the world of Yetzirah, the world of formation. Once you have access to the ruach, then you can enter that world. But whenever we're on nefesh, which is what we're all on nefesh. And we haven't yet corrected our nefesh. Otherwise, we would be starting to build the vessel for our ruach. But still, we haven't corrected our nefesh. So we have to build the vessel to correct our nefesh, to receive the light of the nefesh. Then we can start to receive the light of the ruach. By the way, you already are operating off of your nefesh. So there's no kudos points, whatever they're called, extra credit for being on nefesh. Everyone's on nefesh. Jews, non-Jews, animals, everybody's on nefesh. So whenever you attach your animal soul to the godly soul, then you can elevate yourself to the next level. So that's what the Jewish role in this creation is. It's to be that conduit, and by that means can the non-Jews, the Goyim, also connect. It's through the light of God that the Jews were chosen to funnel into this world. For whatever reason, God saw that the vessel of the Jewish nation was the proper fit for the level of light that God wants to reveal. They had the capacity, the spiritual, intellectual, emotional, physical capacity to reveal the lights of God that He was looking to reveal in this world. And through the rectification of Israel, the entire light of God, all of the light of God will be revealed for the entire creation. That's to give some backstory. Now, not to get so distracted, let's get back. So Canaan is the land that God is telling Avram to go to. He's saying, I will show you this land. So leave from the land that you're in, from your birthplace, and from your father's home, and go to this land that I will show you. So Canaan represents the place where the holiness will be given to the person who is worthy of it. If a person is worthy of holiness, when they reach the state of Canaan, then they can actually reveal that holiness. But why can they not reveal it beforehand? Why do they have to go to that land? Because if you're in any other land, then you are suffering from these three factors: from your land, from your birthplace, and from your father's home. And that's exactly why God is specifying these three factors here. He's saying that these three factors actually hold a person back from being able to reveal the light of their soul. What are these three factors? Again, the land that you are living in, the place that you were born, and the house that you're living in, meaning your father's lineage, being attached to your father's house. So those three factors are the three reasons that people listen to their evil inclination, their Yetzer Hara. We know that the Yetzer Hara is that voice that exists within the mind of every person that kind of tempts them to make a mistake, or even more than make a mistake, to intentionally sin, God forbid. The evil inclination is that voice that each person has in their mind, in their head. It's the second voice that tells them, don't listen to the voice of God. Don't listen to the good voice. Because we each have two good voices. We have two voices. One good, one bad. The Yetzer Hatov and the Yetzer Hara. If you don't want to call it a voice, because it makes you think you're crazy, you have two voices speaking in your head, then call them natures. They are conflicting natures. And this is something that we all know. That we have the animalistic side, which is selfish, and we have the godly side, which is selfless. Love thy neighbor as thyself. We are basically learning, step by step, slowly by slowly, how to transform our selfish desires, our Yetzer Hara, into a force of good, into a force of giving, a force of love, a force of compassion, kindness, mercy, godliness. So we have that negative nature within us, and we have to work to transform it. Since Abraham was worthy of the holiness that God wanted to give him, then the only thing that was preventing him from becoming Avraham, because we know first he's Avram. So if he was worthy, then why was he born as Avram? If he was worthy, he should be had been born as Avraham with the hey, Gadlut. So why is he born Katan if he's not worthy? The point is he's worthy. But the only thing that's keeping him back from reaching Gadlut was that he was living in these three circumstances. He had these three factors that were holding him back. The land that he was born in was full of tameh, tuma. Tuma means impurity. The land itself was impure. The lands outside of Israel are considered to be impure. But that's all temporary. Because when the ultimate redemption happens, B'ezrat Hashem, in our days, very soon it's going to happen, the spirit of impurity will be lifted from the land. So you can be in Israel, you can be in Guatemala, you can be in America, anywhere you're going to be, you're not going to be considered to be in impure lands. Everywhere is going to be holy. In the time of Mashiach, everything will be Kodesh. Everyone will be Kodesh, everything will be Kodesh, and I cannot wait for that. The second thing is he was conceived in a state of spiritual impurity as well. Why was he conceived in a state of spiritual impurity? Because his mom and dad, whenever they came together to have a child, did not immerse themselves in a mikveh. We know that in Kabbalah, in Judaism, they teach that before you have relations with your partner, you need to be spiritually purified. You need to go to a spring water, and dunk yourself in that water at least 3 times, and spiritually revive yourself and prepare yourself for the spiritual occasion. Because having relations with your wife is a spiritual occasion. It's not an animalistic occasion. It's a spiritual occasion. It's a holy and sanctified moment. That's why marriage is a mitzvah. The concept of marrying someone is actually a religious, I don't want to say religious, but it's a spiritual act. It is a holy act. So we need to maintain that and uphold that. And any attack on the sanctity of marriage is something to really be aware and alarmed. Because if you don't have marriage, then you don't have the commitment. You don't have the faithfulness. You don't have the long-lasting love between two people. And then we start to devolve into animals who don't have marriage, who don't have commitments. They sleep around with whoever they want, whenever they want. But we're not animals. We are human beings. And we have 2 natures. One from animal and one from God. One from the land and one from above, from the higher levels of consciousness that God bestowed within us, called the godly soul. So that was the second thing that was keeping Avram back from becoming Gadlut. And the third thing is that his father worshipped idols. His father was an idol worshipper. Avodah Zarah, it's called in Hebrew. It's not a good thing to do because the 7 laws, one of the 7 laws is idol worshipping. You cannot worship idols. So we know that there are 613 laws for Jews, but there are 7 laws for everyone, including Jews and non-Jews. So non-Jews are not off the hook. They still have 7 laws. Do not murder. Do not adulterate. Do not idol worship. These are the 3 main ones. These 3 main ones are punishable by death. The word Lecha in Lecha is also extra. The word Lecha means for yourself. Why not just say, go to the land, or go from the land? Why does it say, go for yourself, or go forth from the land? You don't need to say that. You can just say, Lech le'artzecha, leave the land. But it says, go for yourself. So what is the meaning to that? What is the reason for that extra word? We know that there is no such thing as an extra word in the Torah. The Torah does not waste its time with a letter or a drop of ink that is not meant to convey a deep message that contains 4 levels of understanding. Every letter in the Torah has 4 levels of understanding. So there's no such thing as a word or a letter or a concept or an idea that doesn't have absolute depth of meaning in the Torah. So the word Lecha cannot actually be extra. So that was just a joke. It's not actually extra. It seems extra, but it's not extra. So the word Lech is telling you that you are already worthy. Lecha means yourself. Yourself, you are actually worthy of this holiness. And all you need to do is take yourself out from this land and where? Go where? Go to Canaan, the place where you are able to receive this Kedusha that you are worthy of. Then he says, and I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will aggrandize your name, and you will be a blessing. Now we have here God hinting to Abraham deeper secrets here. Hashem is informing Abraham in this verse of something that doesn't seem pshat, because it's not pshat, it's a remez. It's a hint that if he goes to Canaan, he will acquire the 4 levels of his soul, not just the 3 that we said, nefesh, ruach, and neshama, but he will correct his neshama and attain his chaya, which is the neshama of his neshama. And I will make you into a great nation. The great nation refers to nefesh. And I will bless you. That refers to ruach. And I will aggrandize your name. That's your neshama. And you will be a blessing. That is your chaya. So that's what remez is all about. Remez is a hint. It's not able to be seen on the simple level. But somebody who has a spiritual set of eyes, and that's what Kabbalah is all about. That's why this was written by Kabbalists. These works that we're reading right now were not written by human beings that didn't know what they were doing. They were written by human beings who were gadol. They were by gedolim. That's why we call them in Hebrew great giants. Gedolim means great ones. Those are the sages. Our sages were gedolim. So they knew what they were saying. They had a spiritual set of eyes. And they were able to know the remez, the drosh, the sod. And they're teaching it to us. And now we, people who have not reached those levels, people who are striving to attain those levels, have to learn from their words in order to get to where they are trying to take us. And where we end up going is different for each person. But it's always going to be in Canaan, Israel, really. The destination is Israel. But our experience of it and our journey to get there is different for each person. But nevertheless, we will attain nefesh, ruach, and neshama. If you leave your land, your birthplace, and your father's house, and you enter the land of Canaan, you will receive access to your nefesh, ruach, and neshama. And when you reach your neshama, then you can reach the chaya. You can also reach the chaya. But first, it's one step at a time. Don't jump to chaya. No. First, we have to correct our nefesh. Then we need to reach ruach. Then neshama. Then chaya. Nefesh, remember, corresponds to the world of action. So everybody here is connected to their nefesh. a person who is striving to reach their higher faculties needs to learn how to connect to their ruach. And then that will help them attain the world of Yetzirah. They can enter the world of formation and understand the remez of the Torah. The remez of the Torah. Why do we say remez of the Torah? Because again, pshat, remez, drosh, and sod, the 4 levels of understanding the Torah, correspond to the 4 levels of the soul. So, I thought we were learning remez right now. Does that mean we're in the world of Yetzirah? Am I using my ruach right now? Remember, each level has another 4 levels. So we're right now learning remez of pshat. That means that we're operating from our nefesh, but we're understanding a higher level than the simple understanding. We're in the remez of pshat. But soon enough, we need to learn how to reach remez itself, meaning the pshat of remez, and the remez of remez, and then the drosh of remez, and then the sod of remez. Then we go and we start learning the pshat of drosh, then the remez of drosh, and the drosh of drosh, and then the sod of rosh. Then you go to the sod, then you go to remez of sod, then you go to drosh of sod, and eventually you get where? Sod of sod. The secrets of all secrets. That's the level of wisdom that is not impossible. It's not impossible, but it's so rare to be such an elevated state in Adam Kadmon, because that's the world of Adam Kadmon. You have to travel from Asiyah to Yetzirah to Bria to Atzilut to Adam Kadmon, which means you have to have access to your nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, and your yechidah. Wow, that's something that really is impressive. If a person can attain that, now people can attain it. The Ari, the holy Rabbi Isaac Luria has attained it. Many others. Moses has attained it. Rabbi Akiva has attained it. These people were not just Gedolim, they were the Gedolim of all Gedolim. They reached the Yechidah. That's very, very difficult to do. So, and we're here on the lower levels of consciousness looking up at these giants and saying, wow, how am I ever going to get there? So, don't overwhelm yourself, of course. I'm making this video for a person who is serious about learning about this. So, obviously, it's going to be overwhelming at the beginning. Especially if you're on a dedicated journey and you're going to be consistent with your Torah studies and keeping Shabbat. You know, all of these mitzvot that we're doing is not about the physical act. You need to have the physical act in order to actually manifest this consciousness, the higher consciousness. But it needs to be in conjunction with kavanah. So kavanah means learning the secrets of why the mitzvot are the way that they are. Which means you have to strive to learn Kabbalah. Kabbalah, remember, is the deeper level of the Torah. But really, even the simple level of the Torah is Kabbalah, because you cannot separate the two. You just simply cannot separate these two. In fact, that brings me to this quote from the Zohar, which I want to read for you, just so you get a better understanding of how serious this is. The letters of the word Bereshit can be rearranged to read Atar Yavesh, which means a river destroyed and dry. At that time, when it is dry, referring to the Torah, the children below scream out in unison and say, Shema Yisrael, hear, O Israel. Yet there is no sound and no answer. This is regarding the person who causes Kabbalah and wisdom to depart from the oral Torah and the written Torah, and causes others to not attempt to understand them, saying that there is nothing but the simple meaning, pshat, of learning the Torah and Talmud. So that's the extent to which we're speaking here. That if a person really differentiates, separates between Torah and Kabbalah, then that's not a proper tradition. That's not Torah Judaism. You cannot separate Kabbalah from Torah. So each, according to their capacity, are obligated to learn as far as they can go, as deep as they can go into the wisdom of Torah. And of course, for Jewish people, this is not an option. This is your destiny. But if you don't, then should I read you another quote? Here, I'll read you another quote. At this time, the Messianic era, A spirit will go out and will not return. This is the spirit of the Messiah. Woe to those who cause him to depart and leave the world, never to return. These are those who make the Torah as a dry, barren place, and do not desire to involve themselves in the wisdom of Kabbalah. Woe to those who bring about poverty and war, and disgrace, and murder, and destruction in the world. Remember, this is referring to a Jew who doesn't learn the Torah that his soul needs. This isn't a matter of religion. This isn't a matter of scaring a person. No. A person is meant to attain a certain share of wisdom of the Torah. A person has a certain portion in the knowledge that he needs to attain. A certain portion in the global rectification that needs to take place. What we call tikkun olam. You have an individual tikkun. I have my individual tikkun. So each person has their portion that they need to rectify. And that refers to the Torah that they need to learn. But there's 3 levels of tikkun, corresponding to the nefesh, ruach, and neshama. To correct your nefesh, we said before, it's avodat Hashem, divine service, which means really doing the mitzvot and not making mistakes, not sinning about the mitzvot. Keeping the mitzvot perfectly, that's how you correct your nefesh. Then ruach, that is exactly what the character traits and character building is all about. If you want to correct your ruach, you need to learn how to control your emotional traits. That's chesed, gevurah, tiferet, netzach, hod, and yesod. Chesed is ahavat Hashem, your love of God. Gevurah is yirat Hashem, fear of God. Tiferet, yichud b'Hashem, oneness with God. Netzach is bitachon b'Hashem, trust in God. Hod is temimut, which means integrity. And yesod is emet, the truth. That's the foundation of these midot. That means all of this should be based on the wisdom of Torah. By the way, that's what we call gamilut chasadim. Then there's neshama. To correct the neshama, what is it? Limud Torah, learning Torah. That's why it says here that if you don't engage in the wisdom that your soul is destined, it needs to learn it, then the only alternative option is poverty, war, disgrace, murder, and destruction. Why? Because that's plan B. So what are we seeing in Israel right now? We're seeing some revelations of war, maybe a little bit of murder, maybe some destruction, disgrace, and perhaps even some poverty. I mean, they still have food and water, but you get what I'm saying. Around the world, we have poverty. In Africa, the places that are impoverished. So, this exists now. This is our reality right now. So we need to, as Jews, take our mission more seriously. We're not here for ourselves. So those are the 2 options we have. Choose life or death, good or bad, right or wrong. And these days, we see the polarization happening. Good is being separated from bad. What's happening exactly? Things are becoming sanctified. Believe it or not. I know it seems like, the evil is getting greater and the good is getting less. That's not true. Both are at a stable level, but how revealed it is among the masses is different. It could be one person in the world who carries the weight of all of the holiness in the world. It's not a matter of quantity. It's a matter of the quality of the good. It's always going to be on par. The quality of the bad is always on par with the quality of the bad in the world. So at the same time that we see Hamas attacking Israel, we also see the Jewish people uniting in the state of Israel. But remember, with anything bad, there's always an ezer kenegdo. There's always an opposing side. So there's something good. And same thing goes with something good. Whenever there's something good, there's something bad. That's so long as you're in the world of the tree of life, tree of knowledge, good and bad. But if you enter the tree of life, which is Israel, which is the state of consciousness, the higher state of consciousness, then there is no good and bad. It's just all good. There is no bad. So people ask, so how is there good? Because you need to have darkness in order to see the light. You need that contrast in order to tell the difference between good and bad, right? So there is still going to be a contrast, because even though everything is going to be good, right, in the world to come, in Olam Haba, that doesn't mean that there is no growth, that there is no advancement. So the advancement that takes place in Olam Haba is between good and Tov Me'od. Between Tov and Tov Me'od. That's the difference. There's higher levels of holiness that they can attain. Because there's no end. That's the beauty. Ein Sof. God is endless. There is no limit. There is no ceiling. There is no border. You have borders. You have borders. But God, which symbolizes the spiritual attainments that are waiting for you, right? There is no border. There is no border to how much you can grow. There is no limit to how holy you can become. Because you can always build your vessel. You can always expand your borders. So thank you so much for hearing this message. I mean, this is really God talking to us, but Rabbi Abu Chatzera is talking to us. Whenever you learn from the Sefer of a tzaddik, that tzaddik himself comes and teaches you. That's if you're connecting to the tzaddik. It could be I'm being very egotistic and thinking that I'm doing all of the work. And so therefore, there's not enough room for, in my mind, for the light of Rabbi Abu Chatzera to fill my mind so he can speak through me. Because I'm not selfless. I'm not righteous. But we're attaining that together, right? Slowly, surely, I'm trying my best. And hopefully you're also able to benefit from this and understand that you are worthy of holiness. You are worthy of the light of God. Modern day, we can see it more than ever. That society is descending into the midst of the spiritual impurities. So we see that LGBTQ is becoming much more prevalent among young generations. We also see that depression is on the rise. We also see that all sorts of evil and the celebration of what is bad is increasing in the world. But we don't see all of the good that's happening behind the scenes. There are people like me and you who are on a path of holiness. There are people like me and you who are on a path of spirituality, who they are believers in. It's not about God, it's not about religion. They're a believer in the power of good. They're a believer in the power of kindness, of light over darkness, truth over falsehood. That's really what we're dealing with. Good versus bad. And things are polarizing, like we said. Then the second thing, to be conceived out of spiritual impurity. Every person has a Yetzer Hara. We were born with it. So how do you deal with that? So how do you deal with your Yetzer Hara? That's restriction. Don't listen to the voices of impurity. Don't listen to the Yetzer Hara. If a voice comes and tells you to sin, tells you to make a mistake, watch it and watch it leave. In one ear, out the other. It comes and goes. But don't grab it. I've always heard this thought that thoughts are like clouds. And you choose to pick them up. They pass by. Good thoughts, bad thoughts, good desires, bad desires, temptations, good ones, bad ones. But the ones that you actually do, they're up to you to choose. You decide which thoughts you're going to dwell on. You decide which actions you're going to really fulfill. So, because the thoughts is all potential. But action? Ooh. That's the manifestation. That's the actualization of that potential. So we need to be careful with listening to the voice of the Yetzer Hara. And thirdly, the house of your father. Do not follow in the footsteps of the wicked ways of the people who came before you. Your father, your mother. It's not about parents being evil. You have to honor your parents no matter what. Even if they're evil, you have to honor your parents. There's a level of kavod, respect, that still needs to be maintained, even if your parents are wicked. So it's not about blaming your parents. It's about you understanding that you are your parents unless you change. So you need to help them. How do you help your parents? By transforming your own nature. Because you are them. That's something you learn later in Kabbalah, in mysticism, that your soul is actually a derivation from your parents. You're the tikkun of your parents, which means that you're here to rectify them. And they were here to rectify their parents, and up and up and up. So if you do the job, if you fulfill the tikkun, if you fulfill your lineage, then you don't need to come back. You enter the world of Israel. You enter the land of Israel, which is a state of spiritual consciousness. Remember, it's a state of heightened perception of godliness. But that's really within you. That's what people make a mistake on. They think God is external. They think that the upper worlds, olamot, sefirot, are outside of you. It's just a funny thing. That's not true. They're inside of you. Because if they were outside of you, then we should be looking for external stimulus. But that's not what Kabbalah teaches. That's not what Torah teaches. God says everything you need is already inside you. You are worthy in and of yourself. And the only reason that you haven't attained the holiness that is fitting for you is because there are other factors, external factors, that are holding you back that you need to learn to let go. That is the message of Lech Lecha. May we all have the merit to walk in the ways of Avram in his journey towards Avraham, so that we each become a gadol in our own way, according to our capacity. And may the power of all of our prayers be uplifted and spread like a domino effect, transforming the entire world, one person at a time, one soul at a time, towards our collective journey, towards rectification, what we call tikkun olam. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.